Hey, Joe. Hey, Jacob. All right. Got Eric, Bernadette. Okay, I think we've got a full house, folks. So, how you doing, man? Good to have you back. All right, we're going to get going here. We've got more than enough for a quorum. Thank you, everyone, for joining us virtually for the May South Bay COG board meeting. I appreciate you all being here. I'm sure some of you are pretty much zoomed out by now.
Yep.
But I'm glad that we can at least get this done. So why don't we don't usually do it when we're on Zoom, but why don't we just go around the table and introduce ourselves, because I see we have a variety of guests as well. So how do we do this in an organized fashion? All right, I'm going to introduce all of you. How about that? All right, I see we have Rodney Tanaka from Gardena, George Chen from Torrance, Cedric Hicks from Carson, John Cruikshank from RPV, Hildy Stern from Manhattan Beach, B. Derringer from Rolling Hills, or is it Rolling Hills Estates? Sorry, guys, I always get you both mixed up. Kenny Cow from Palos Verdes Estates, Olivia Valentine from Hawthorne, Joe Buscaiano from the city of Los Angeles, Britt Huff, again, from Rolling Hills Estates, or Rolling Hills, my apologies again, Jennifer Lamarque from Supervisor Hahn's office, representing District 4, Ralph Franklin has now joined us from the city of Inglewood, Jim Gaisley with his single malt liquor from the city of Lomita, Stacey Armato is here from the city of Hermosa Beach, Bernadette Suarez from Lawndale, Erica Legria from RPV, Lacey Johnson from the 2nd Supervisorial District, Drew Boyles 2 times over from the city of El Segundo. Those are all our elected officials, and I am Christian Horvath, your host of what looks like Hollywood Squares in the 21st century. And then
that was impressive.
Thank you. And then I see some guests we have today. I see Holly Osborne, a resident of Redondo Beach. I see Jacob Hake, deputy to Council Member Buscaiano. I see Denny Shaw from the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Let's see, Jeff Kiernan is here from the League of California Cities. And Stephen Sawyer from Spectrum. And then on our staff, we have, of course, Jackie here with us.
You have, Christian, yeah. You have Axel Pelosius from Councilman Buscaiano's office.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Axel.
And I don't know who Deborah Dietz is.
Okay, well, we have guest Deborah Dietz. And staff, we have Kim Fuentes, Grace Barwell, Brooke Harry, Steve Lance, and then Natalie Champion and David Ligier. So I think that is everybody. Thank you all again for attending. And with that said, can we confirm posting of the agenda by the Torrance City Clerk?
Yes, and I also want to say that I think, I'm not sure, but I think this might be the first time we've ever had, in like a long time, that we ever had every single jurisdiction represented.
Well, that's really cool. Excellent. Then
we didn't have to drive too far.
Yeah.
We can do Zoom meetings all the time.
Yeah, once we get in our new office, we'll have something set up so you can teleconference in maybe. All right, and then announcements to any changes to the agenda. I'm gonna move item 7A to after 9. That is just a discussion for us to kind of recap what's going on in our cities as it relates to COVID-19. I'd rather us kind of get through our business first, and then we can move on to that, just in case we have to lose anybody on the early side. And of course, this is not scrolling for me. And then let's see, what else? Yeah, that's it. So why don't we go to comments from the public? Is there anybody from the public that's joining us right now that would like to speak to the board? You get 3 minutes, and if so, please unmute yourself and announce your name. or raise your hand and I will call on
I don't know how to raise my hand.
you. Is that Holly?
Yes.
Yes, Holly, would you like to speak to the board?
Yeah, I submitted the question in writing, but I'll just read what I submitted, okay?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay. It says, on page 64 of the agenda package, you state, on another note, in January 2020, the Metro Board approved a contract to hire a firm to start the environmental process for the Green Line to Torrance. Public meetings on this matter have not yet been scheduled due to the COVID-19 public restrictions. However, once the public assembly restrictions are lifted, Metro has tentative dates scheduled for late summer, fall 2020. That's in your package. My question is, what are these tentative dates? And are there any minutes to the meetings that the firm has had on this matter since January 2020? If so, is there a link to those minutes? Thank you. Holly Osborne, Redondo Beach.
Okay, thank you, Holly. And if you are not speaking, just remember, keep yourself muted, just in case there's any background noise like the car horn we were just hearing. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak right now under public comment? All right, seeing none, then we will move on. Thank you. Consent calendar, we have items A through F. Is there anybody that would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Yes, I would like to, this is B, pull item E from the consent calendar, please.
Okay. Is there a second to pulling item E from the consent calendar? Actually, we don't need a second. Sorry, B. Okay, so anybody else want to pull anything?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I will take that as a, I saw Olivia light up first, so we'll take Olivia as the seconder on that motion. Okay, so we are approving the consent calendar except for item E. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, then let's go to excluded consent items and.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
yes.
Chair, I wonder if we really should take a roll call since we have so many guests and it's impossible to say how people voted.
Well, that's why if nobody answered to no or abstention, then we're good. We're going to count that as a unanimous aye. That's how we've done it. I'm sorry, what was that, Jim?
It take a lot longer call and roll on every item, so.
Yeah,
I know it would take longer.
I realize on a handful of the other boards meetings that I've been doing, we are taking roll call and it is extremely painful. But in this case here where I can see you all, if you answer in one of the three categories, we will make sure that you are accounted for. In this case, it is definitely unanimous, so we're good. So let's go to the excluded item, which was E, the financial reserve policy. B, go ahead. What would you like to bring up?
Okay, with regard to this, this is something that I believe we should be discussing, and there should be some ample authority for more than what was placed in the agenda items, because this reserve policy was previously established by the board several years ago prior to the 5-year dues increase, which would, according to our decision previously, that 5-year increase would provide us with a requisite sufficient reserves for the board and for the COG to operate. This is more than doubling the prior reserves that were agreed by the board previously and for which the dues increase was established. But there's, I don't think there's enough information to be able to establish we should more than double the reserves, and that all the items are necessary for the reserves that we're going into this estimation, because this is just if approval of this will be essentially an approval of another dues increase, because there will be reasons because of this decision that will be used to say that we now need to basically put a dues increase that will equate to the 400,000, which we don't have. I think they said 159,000 that are in there now, without any real justification for it. So I don't think this is properly put into consent, and I think there's not enough information provided that everybody should be able to vote for a new dues increase by voting in favor of this item.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, do you want to address?
The reason it was on the consent calendar is that it was discussed at the steering committee. And so we don't put anything on the consent calendar that hasn't gone through the steering committee. So they did have the discussion there. And the justification for the for this particular amount of money is we've been sort of setting a reserve based on some number. And we felt it was really important to have it based on something that was tangible. But also something that would last for a couple of years, so that it wouldn't change based on our on our budget, because our budget changes all the time due to the grants we get. So we did a calculation, as you can see, of what some of the standard expenditures are for the COG, but also what close down was, because at one point we looked at that being the issue. If tomorrow we had to go and close our doors, what would the cost be? And the cost for closing down would be about $400,000 when you take in the rent and the obligations we have to our employees and all of those other issues. So we thought if we set a reserve for 5 years, this year we can handle the $90,000 that we're talking about would come from interest and would come from our existing accounts. There is no dues increase planned for this year at all. And so in the future, it would to get to 400,000, we would have currently, under what we know today, a $37,000 increase each year for that reserve. It doesn't mean there'll be a dues increase, but Councilmember Derringer is making the point that it does set an obligation that that you would be setting for the next 4 years. I think it's important, we felt it was important, and I think the steering committee did too, that there be a amount of reserves that is set for the COG, so that we have some assurance that we can handle emergencies and also specifically the shutdown. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Chair.
So I would just say right now, as we've discussed in previous meetings, the Finance Committee is currently on hold as a result of the crisis. We are not having a dues increase. We're not continuing those discussions until we get through the crisis and can address it at that point. What we're talking about here is reallocating existing funds that are already part of the COG budget to put aside for future reserve. So we're obligating ourselves to that, which means Jackie and Kim and the staff will have to figure out where that money's going to come from. And then if we so decide at a future date that we are going to have a dues increase and we are going to boost the reserves as a result of that, or whatever our discussions were related to, that would be totally separate. So does this answer your concerns and questions, or no?
Well, I mean, partially yes, partially no. If as Jackie's saying that there is 90,000 in the present budget now, to add 90,000 to the reserves, without regard to what would happen in future years, which she admits is not provided for in any future budgets already, then I think the motion should be just to simply say, okay, we're going to devote $90,000 more to the reserves, knowing that we can pull it out if we need it. I mean, and the reserves are just money's being put into a fund that you may not have. That's why it's called a reserve. You may not need to use them. But, you know, I don't think without justification, since there isn't going to be, we've been discussing very arduously about a dues increase, and I don't think it's appropriate to put in for 4 more years monies that are not readily available, when the whole issue is whether or not the members are in support of an additional dues increase, and this would set it up for an additional dues increase. That's my point.
I don't think this sets it up for an additional dues increase. As right now, this is a policy call. That policy can change actually by a vote of this board at a future time. But I think it's staff trying to be financially prudent about, do they have enough money to close down in that situation, as Jackie mentioned. So if the monies right now are coming out of the budget, then that's up to the executive director and her staff to figure out, where is that 37,000 going to come from. That is a totally different policy call as to whether we would raise dues and have that go towards either general operations and or reserves. So we have not finished that discussion, and we can. Is there any other comments or questions? Jackie?
I just wanted to add, and when we get to the budget, you'll see that we also have a fund balance, and the fund balance is sufficient for at least us to not have to, that we can afford the $37,000 for at least the next year. So it does, as the chair says, it does not mean that we would have to raise dues for that 37,000, but it sets us up with I mean, all of your cities have reserves. We have a fund balance, and we're saving part of it for reserves so that we know that we have money for a shutdown.
Okay, Ralph.
Yeah, so I raised the concern that we support the amended budget as presented, because when we had our steering committee meeting, we raised the concerns about the bubble that we're on and the concern that we may have with reference to retaining and maintaining our staff, as well as our legal commitment we've made in our new move and the financial obligations we have therein. In addition, we raised the concern as well about the current sponsors and supporters through grants, et cetera, may not be there during the next year or so. As a consequence, people are now trying to adjust to this COVID-19 impact it's had on cities and the various providers that have provided us grants, as well as other dollars. So therefore, we agreed that we were going to take the 2020-21 $53,000 from interest rate earnings, and then add the additional 37,000 for a total of the 90,000, which will bring us where we are, which what we want to be today, and then sustain that to reach the total value of 400,000. And also handling our day, we have that reserve, which is unencumbered funds. The board can always reassess as to whether or not we need to move any of that money, but because it's unencumbered, it gives us the latitude of being able to know that we have a reserve for a rainy day if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just have a question. Given the fact that we did have a discussion several years ago about what an adequate reserve would be, and we based a dues increase over 5 years based on that reserve policy, what was provided, because it's not in here, as to why there is a need to depart from that, and then the process for obtaining the money other than through a dues increase. That's what I was asking.
Well, I think Ralph slightly addressed that, but
Some.
Expenses continue to grow, costs continue to grow. We may find lack of revenue sources in terms of grants. We have an obligation now to a new building and the growing rent structure there. So I think you are just prudently and conservatively ensuring that this body and this organization will still have enough money to be able to shut down. Jackie, I don't know if you want to.
I think that the $150,000 that we tried to raise for reserves before was not based on either our operations or our potential shutdown. And what we decided what this policy does is it says we really should be basing the reserves on something very specific so that we understand it, and we should keep it there for 5 years so that we have it doesn't keep changing and we can budget for it. So this is trying to establish a real financial reserve policy in which we can, which is based on our costs. And I don't think the other was. I think the other was based on what we could afford at the time.
Okay, George.
Maybe I'm a little confused here since it's my second board meeting. I think Jackie said this reserve is based on a rough estimate, 400K, should we ever shut down. Did I hear that clearly, Jackie?
Yes, yes.
Okay, maybe that's a concept that's a little foreign to me, that the reserve is used for shutdown.
Well, we were trying to establish a certain amount of money that would allow us to get through emergencies. And so we thought that one of the emergencies we might have would be shutdown. And so if you can see there, we have in there a listing of a lot of our expenditures that we probably would consider essential. And that came to $900,000. We didn't feel a reserve, you know, a 100% or a 50% reserve would make a lot of sense, but we felt that, and we had discussed this previously with one of our financial consultants, that budgeting so the employees and everybody else would be taken care of in the event of having to leave in some kind of a reason, that would be something that would make sense. So we established that. We have a 5-year reevaluation of that policy. And we also have, someone asked, I think at one of the meetings, if we did shut down and there was money left over, what happens? And the policy also includes rebating any remaining funds back to the cities based on how much they paid in dues. So it is trying to be comprehensive and trying to explain where we, how we're protected in the future, and also what we would do with the funds.
Okay, I don't want to belabor it because it just be new to me, but it's the first time I heard a concept of reserve is for shutting down. I think of reserve just like, you know, something unexpected happened and you needed some funds which was not budgeted. It's almost like a risk management. You know, a catastrophe happened, COVID-19 happened. We couldn't pay for this. For a shutdown just seems not a norm.
I think it's a little, if we had an emergency, we would take it from this reserve. We're basing it on shutdown costs, but it is a reserve like any other reserve.
Okay, Ralph, I see you raise your hand again.
Yeah, just very simply,
you muted yourself right mid-sentence, Ralph. You want to start again?
try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
So I'd recommend everyone to look at the staff report on page 38, which spells out the economic uncertainties, which solidifies the concerns the steering committee had along with Jackie on why we should increase our reserves for the, as it says, the economic uncertainties for local, state, and national economy. End of comment.
Okay. If there are no further comments or questions, is there a motion to accept the policy, the financial reserves policy?
I so move.
Okay. Wells. Okay. It was a motion from Mr. Franklin and a second from Mr. Boyles. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, George, so Torrance and B are opposed. Are there any abstentions? Okay, thank you. All right, then let us move on. Okay. All right, so, sorry folks, scrolling through here. Okay. What I'd like to do right now before we get into the budget review is I would like to make a special presentation to Council Member Ralph Franklin for his service on as chair of the Metro Service Council.
Natalie or David was going to put something up.
There we go. Thank you. So Ralph, in recognition of your service as a member since 2007 and as chair since 2009 for the South Bay Metro Service Council, the South Bay City Council of Governments recognizes your dedicated leadership on the council, specifically as its chair. You have set an example of high standards for members of the council, including the importance of the adopt-a-line for each member, and you have provided an important perspective to addressing improvements to the South Bay's regional transit system, enhancing our quality of life. On behalf of myself and the board, we would like to thank you. And personally, my own personal comments, Ralph, it is really just an absolute honor to serve with you on this board. You are a a wealth of knowledge, and I truly appreciate everything that you bring to this body and to any of us who have served in the chair capacity. I am grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the monthly reports, very detailed monthly reports that you provide on the South Bay Metro Service Council. If there's one person on this board, besides Mr. Gaisley, who likes to get things done quickly, it is Ralph. And so I appreciate you and all you've given. So if everybody would just give a nice round of applause to Ralph.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm truly honored. Thank you so much.
Yes, and you're the one that helped me speed up the meetings, and you've been fantastic on this board for the 10 years I've been on it. God bless you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Tim, you're supposed to raise your glass, but I won't tell you. All right. Okay, so now moving on, we're going to go to presentations, item number 7A, and that is the 2020-21 budget review. So Jackie, Brooke.
Sure, I'll start off. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to present the budget, not to adopt the budget. It's to give you an opportunity to see what we are suggesting and to ask questions. And as you know, you've all been doing your budgets, and it's pretty crazy time for everybody. But the COG is in a very different position than your cities are. And we are able to present to you a balanced budget, which we're very happy about this year, since we haven't been able to do that in the last couple of years, even though we balance it by the end of the year. The other thing that's different about our budget, and we did discuss this with the steering committee, is that we actually need to hire some And the reason we need to hire some staff is, as you know, over 85% or 80% of our budget comes from grants. And those grants are provided to us so that we can deliver services to benefit your cities and your constituents. And so we need people on the staff to actually perform those functions. And we have gotten so lean at the COG that we have not been able to perform the functions that we are getting paid to do. So we had just recently hired somebody for the homeless to help Grace, because we continually are getting money from the county to address specific homeless services, and it was just getting to be too much for one person. We are also getting money from the Regional Energy Coalition, which is something we didn't expect, and we don't have anybody right now who's dedicated to energy, specifically dedicated to energy. The other thing about this budget is that we need to redesign our website, and we are putting in a lot of money for that. We have $100,000 for that, because the platform that it's currently on is no longer going to be supported, and our website is old and it's not reflecting the best in websites today. We were asked at the steering committee why $100,000, and in 2012 we actually did spend $70,000. And so we think that $100,000 is a prudent amount for today's prices. And hopefully we won't need to spend that much, but if we do, we have the money in the budget. We also, as the chair said, we had the ad hoc finance committee was looking at they weren't really looking at a dues increase as much as changing the dues structure as well. And that's all put on hold because the cities are, we're in a precarious position. All of us are. And then the final thing is, one of the things about our budget, which looks very large, but is an artificially large part of the budget, is the fiber work, because we are paying American Dark Fiber about $4 million to build the fiber network, and that is listed under contracts. So the budget looks very large under contracts. But if you go with me to, what page would this be? I can't even see now. To the revenues, it's page 68. That's the summary sheet, is page 68. And you can see that our proposed budget is a $6.5 million budget, and the expenditures are $6.4 million. So we do have we're projecting that we will not have a deficit budget this year. And that does include reserves. Then we have our pie charts on the following page, which shows our revenues and our expenditures. And once again, you can see that dues is a small part at 6% of our revenues. when we get to the next page, and I'll just go through this rapidly, and then Brooke and I can answer any questions. When we get to the page 70, you can see this is our revenue page, and we are now no longer doing the holiday light exchange, and but the other items are pretty much staying consistent. We're very fortunate that Dominguez Channel gives us an administrative fee to do all of their invoicing, and if you are part of a stormwater board, we hope that you will tell them that the COG can do that for them, and that would help us with a pretty stable financing. And then we have our grants, and the grants add up to about $5 million. And as I said, we've got $4 million, which is our item that we're paying for the fiber. So that's why that's so large. And I will just answer questions on that page if you have any, but I can keep going. The next page is our expenditures, and you can see the salaries for the employees, and then our office expenses and professional services and contractual services. And we've added in here, as you can see, specialty legal services, because we do pay for the anything over and above if we need a specialty lawyer, for example. Then we have our contracts on salaries on the next page. And then at the we have an acronyms list, and at the very end, oh, we have our budget narrative. The budget narrative goes into trying to explain each of the line items. And I would say at this point, I was going to say it later, but General Assembly sponsorships, we received a lot of sponsorships this year. It was the highest ever. And what we're doing with them, the steering committee has decided that what we're doing is we're going back to the sponsors, and we're asking them if they will leave their sponsorship with us. We will give them publicity for the rest of the year. And we've just started going back to them, but we already talked to one sponsor who said, wow, that sounds like a pretty good deal, because it's more publicity than they would have gotten normally. Usually we do the General Assembly, and then we thank them in the next newsletter, and that's the end. But we're promising to thank them in every newsletter until December. So, and then if they actually give us money for next year's General Assembly, that even more benefits. So we're trying to find ways of keeping that money, but we definitely project to have less money next year. I guess the best thing for me to do at this point is probably to answer any questions. You can see the narratives there, and we end the budget with our fund balance, which at the end, you can see the fund balance is on page 77. So Brooke and I are here to answer any questions. And as I said, we're not asking for adoption tonight. We're asking you to ask us questions so that we can make any kind of modifications you're looking for and bring it back next month for the actual adoption.
Okay, if there's any questions, click raise hand or just wave wildly at the screen. We'll go with Olivia waving wildly.
Good evening. Jackie, do you expect to have any reduction in grants as a result of COVID-19?
So far, thankfully, we haven't had any. And even West Basin is giving us even a little bit more money this year, which we're very excited about. So we're constantly looking for more, but I guess I should say, first of all, that we are losing, one of our grants is ending next year, and it's our local travel network, and that's 120, and you'll see that it ends, I think it's $127,000. So that's in the budget that we'll no longer have that. We've applied for another grant from Caltrans, which they were supposed to have told us about a month ago, but we don't even know if we get that grant, then that would be wonderful, but we're not anticipating it. I don't think there's any, we're obviously always looking for grants. One, for example, and I'll say this to all of you, is that Hawthorne and Torrance are getting money for green business work, and they've turned that money over to us, and we're doing that work for the cities. It's money we cannot access, but your cities can. And so if you want more information on how you can, how we can help you help us, please let me know. I'm gonna ask, I know Kim is here. Kim, do you wanna answer anything about other grants?
I would say the only other one that we're anticipating will end mid-year next year is the SoCal Gas Partnership. The whole world of energy efficiency is changing, but we are working very closely with LA County REN and trying to capture and provide those services through that organization. And we started that project just last month, and it's looking very good. Very excited about what we can do for the cities. And so hopefully we'll be able to actually offset that with maybe REN related contracts. But right now, we have been told by SoCalGas that will go away after December.
Okay. Anything else, Olivia?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, Drew?
Yeah, quick comment. We just did our website in our city, and I know ours won't be quite as robust, but we spent $250,000.
Ah.
And that was with Granicus, which is kind of like the standard platform. We looked at getting more innovative with different platforms. We have a technology committee that I used to chair, but we ended up going with Granicus, and it was pretty expensive. So I might suggest that we get some preliminary estimates on that, and we might need to allocate more. And then the other was just a comment. Christian, congrats. I think the reason that we raised so much money in sponsorship is because of that compelling vision you had for the General Assembly, which unfortunately isn't happening. But being involved in that process, you did a great job. That's all I got.
It's just on hold. We're going to do it next year. So, intersections version 2. Okay, Britt.
I'm assuming that website revamp would go out for bid.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So are we currently on the Drupal platform?
Yes.
But I couldn't quite hear Drew. Was he recommending Granicus?
I'm just saying that that's what we ended up going with. I was just using that as a benchmark, Britt, that we went with Granicus, and it was about $250,000.
I would just say, as a company that does graphic design and web design, can it be that expensive? Absolutely. Do I think it needs to be? I don't think so. What a city requires versus this organization, I think, I actually think we'll be able to find a way to do it either within that budget, or I'd be able to quote it way lower, but I'm not going to. Okay, George, did I see you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
I think probably at the steering committee, I'm the one that raised the 2 issues on the budget and the website. I think Britt asked a question that I was going to ask was, may just go out and get at least 2 or 3 bids. That's probably the right thing. I don't think the COG needs the type of website I would say the city of Torrance or the LA need. You need something practical and useful. And then still philosophically, I would, at this point, the COG probably isn't taking a financial hit as most of the cities who needs to generate revenue and balance our budget. And I still have a very difficult time that we are the amount of hiring we're doing at this time when most of us are thinking about cutting our legs off and as least as possible. If the COG, it would be, to me, it would be setting a bad message. If there's a way we can let the as we open up our cities and just delay it maybe 3 months and see how it goes. Philosophically, I have a really hard time with the hiring and the increase in that category of the budget when everybody else is just trying to minimize the casualty. So.
Sure.
If I can just,
Kim, do you guys want to address how you hire and why you hire?
Well, I'll address the fact that one of the things that we will definitely do is, as you are laying off good people that you can't pay for anymore, we would like to be able to advertise among your cities so that maybe we can help some of the people that you unfortunately have to lay off. And so we hope that this is going to be a benefit to the South Bay and to some of the people that are being hurt. Kim, did you want to answer anything?
I would. The main thing I think is important. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise in the background here. Is if we do not hire staff to do the work, then we need to reduce your revenue. That staff is directly connected to the revenue you see on this page. So if you're looking at homeless, that's one of the categories. If you're looking at SoCal Ren, I think there's 80,000 listed there. That's another category. So you would have to actually reduce your revenue. And the bad part of that would be you wouldn't be able to give those services to your cities. So that means that we wouldn't be able to work with your building facility people to help them get energy efficiency projects in. And we had some cities that received substantial sum of money in incentives, and all of that came through the work that the COG has done. So it's sort of a ripple effect, and I know it sounds like, you know, 3 people is a lot of people, 1 person's already on staff, but they're really tied directly to your revenue.
I would say, George, too, there are certain benefits to this body being able to provide work to all our cities collectively and hopefully save your staff time and energy. So as this crisis unfolds and we all go through these cutbacks at our cities, we may be able to find ways for Jackie and her team to actually help supplement things that cuts to services or areas that our staff may be needing assistance in. Just keep that in mind. Any other questions, comments that you guys want to send staff away with before they come back? B.
Yes, I think I agree with the comments Mr. Chen made, and also that there should be some kind of quantification for a website, and actually whether there's a need for one. If we're talking about the possibility not having sufficient money, then perhaps the website could be deferred to another year. So I would like to hear more about the real need for the website, other than the fact it was revamped in 2012, and that's been a while ago, 8 years ago. So the other thing is, I would like to see some quantification. I ask this every year, and I never really see it, but exactly line items for how the money is being spent and to whom and for what purposes for the $420,000 that goes to Jackie Baccarat and Associates and to Jackie's subs. It always is put in there as just divided into like, hey, this is how much goes to Jackie and Associates, and the other, this is how much goes to these subs, which are unnamed, but what they do and how the money is allocated within there is never provided, the specifics. It should be same as every other line item. The other thing is, I would like to see what we have in terms of staff, in terms of what they have been doing in the past. If we need to hire somebody for these specific tasks, then perhaps there's some way to reduce hours or to get temps or interns to handle other tasks, so we can reduce staff or staff hours in other areas, so that we're not in a position where we're actually having to spend additional monies without a real justification for it. So those are my concerns. I'd like some more information in those areas, please.
Sure. Jackie, I know you've addressed B's concern related to your contract and the subs repeatedly over the past few years. Do you want to address that now, or would you rather do that at the next meeting?
I every year I come up with I don't know that it belongs in the budget. I always give B a breakdown of what the sub-consultants do and what I am paying them. If that's something you need again, I can give you that, but I did that last year and I did it the year before and whatever. As far as the website is concerned, if you want me to go on, the staff report does explain that we are on a Drupal platform that is no longer going to be supported. So if we waited for next year, we would run into the fact that we might actually run into our website no longer being supported. So I think it's prudent that we get it done earlier, and I can't remember the other items.
Yeah, I will just say Drupal is a content management system, much like WordPress. I'm sure most of you are familiar with WordPress. So it would be my recommendation that the site move to a WordPress system that would also allow greater flexibility for internal staff to manage the website themselves, as opposed to relying on outside services. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Christian. You made one comment I was going to make, that I feel if our websites from 2012, there's so many changes that have occurred over the last 8 years that I would recommend that we go to a new platform like WordPress. And then I love George dearly, but unfortunately I have to disagree. I believe in these tough times where all these people are losing their jobs, we should, if there's an opportunity to hire anyone, we should be doing it. And then, like Kim said, we have an opportunity to get these projects going, and we need these people to do that. We can't just hire interns to do that. And so I'm in support of bringing on new people. And I think the numbers in Torrance, which are in the hundreds or thousands of people, is kind of a different animal than the few people we're talking about here. So I'm in support of hiring additional staff.
Okay. Thanks, John. Britt?
I was just going to say that I think that even though WordPress is much more hands-on for staff, which is a great aspect, you know, I think that if we're going to make this transition, we should go with a platform that's a little more sophisticated and updated looking.
Well, WordPress is just a content management system. It's your underlying structure would be HTML5 or anything that is coming out there. It's just a way to manage it.
But I think it's limited compared to.
It can be. It really depends on how you flush it out and how you build it up. But I'm just talking from experience in building sites. So, but I hear your concern. You just want to make sure that the platform is as robust as possible.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that is an extremely valid perspective for any website. Yes. Okay. Other questions, comments? All right. So then, Jackie, I think you've got questions and/or things to bring back in June. We do not need a motion on this. So, Jackie, do you have any other things that you want to point out or ask for clarification on before we move on?
I don't think so. Thank you very much. This was
okay.
Good.
All right. Moving on to item number 8, program action items, reports, and updates. Okay. 8A, the nominating committee. We are opening up the nominations for the coming year. Britt, you are the chair of the nominating committee. I don't. You and Jackie can go ahead.
Yes, I would just refer you to the attachment in the agenda that you'll see the nominees for chair. We have Olivia Valentine, City of Hawthorne. First VP, Drew Boyles from the City of El Segundo. Second chair, John Cruikshank from the City of Rancho Palos Verdes. And then 4 at-large nominees, Cedric Hicks, Kenny Cowell, Bernadette Suarez, and Hildy Stern. And so thank you to all of the candidates for being willing to serve. My understanding is that we can take, oh, and I also wanted to thank Jim Gaisley and Jim Osborne, our other COG previous chairs, for serving on that committee. My understanding is that we vote on this in June, but we can take additional nominations at this time.
Jackie?
Yes, we're opening the nominations and then we close them in June. So anybody that wants to nominate somebody else for any of those positions, the nominations are open now.
Okay. Britt, anything else, or can I open up the floor?
That's it.
Okay, so at this point then, is there any discussion, comments, questions, or would anybody like to nominate anybody else for consideration?
I would remove the recommendation from the committee, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We have and I don't think we make the vote tonight. Is that, did we say that, or?
Yeah, we don't vote tonight. We actually, we keep the nominations open for a month.
Got it. So this is
just anxious to get these guys going.
Oh.
I'm sorry, what's that, Joe?
Just anxious.
Okay.
You'll have to come back, Joe, to the next meeting.
I'll have to.
Okay. All right. So if there's no questions or comments, is there a motion to just receive and file the item?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that. And Christian, you know that you'll be able to participate in the General Assembly next year? Did Britt talk to you about that?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Yes. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So there's a motion to receive and file and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Moving on. Okay. legislation of interest.
Okay.
Just FYI, folks, Natalie did send out an amended legislative PDF about an hour or two before the meeting. So just check your emails in case you want that. If what's in the packet is not fully up to date. Go ahead, Jackie.
I think she might have put it in the chat. I don't know. And I'm sorry for this last minute, but if you are aware of what the legislature is doing, they're meeting this week. So I felt it was important for us to figure out what the latest status was. So if you look at the legislative matrix, there are some bills, and I think I probably will drop them next month, that haven't moved since February or even January. And I wanted you to see them, but the legislature, as Jeff will probably tell us later, has a new rule where because it's an abbreviated session, they're only having legislators do a few bills instead of the normally hundreds of bills that goes through. So I will remove the ones next month that are definitely not going anywhere. The first thing I wanted to bring to your attention is SB 795, which has been amended substantially. It is a bill that's supported, I think, by the League. We did support it before. It asks for money that would go into programs for housing, workforce assistance, pre-apprenticeship programs. And because it's been substantially amended, I felt that we needed to reaffirm our support. And so that would be the first one. If you want to, the other thing, another one that was added was a bill that I got from the League, which was once again AB 2580, which is a housing bill. And this one I'm not, since we haven't really explored it at the steering committee or anywhere else, I'm suggesting we monitor it, but it does call for conversion of motels and hotels and streamlining them, and it would allow for any commercial use to become multifamily housing, if at least 20% is a low income. So that's another bill I thought we should watch. We were monitoring AB 3107, and it has to do with your general plan and housing development. I sent this bill to the community development directors, and I got back from them that they felt it would definitely remove local control, and they thought we should oppose. So I am recommending that this bill be opposed, 3107. SB 902 is Wiener's housing bill, which has been amended several times. The latest amendments still include CEQA exemptions, and also I think it does exempt places, I think like the peninsula where there's fire hazards, but it does still allow up to 10 units of residential density per parcel. And we are currently opposed to it, but there are still some changes, so we probably need to send another letter. On recently added today, I guess, was recently was SB 1299. This I'm recommending support, and the League supports this. And I thought of all the bills, this was really a good one, because it says if you have commercial sites that are idle, instead of just the state mandating this, everything that you have to do, this one says you will get property tax based on the commercial status of that site for 7 years if you turn it into housing. So it gives cities some incentive to finally consider housing when they're going to lose money from commercial retail. So I'm recommending that we support that bill, or the steering committee as they heard that bill. And then added today was SB 1385, which the League is also monitoring, and it has to do with authorizing neighborhood lots that are zoned for office or retail, and it would require the density for housing development under these positions to meet or exceed the density deemed to accommodate low-income housing. So I just want to monitor that. We really haven't had a chance to look at it. So the bottom line is that we're recommending that you support, it says on the agenda AB, but it's SB 795, that you oppose AB 3107, and that you support SB 1299, and that you probably have to also reaffirm your opposition to SB 902 because it's been amended.
Jeff, you want to add any color?
I did want to just, I was trying to read along and keep track. I did just want to, on SB 902, the Wiener Bill, it's my understanding that is strictly an opt-in program now. I believe the league is going to end up removing our opposition. Actually, I think we're just going to let it, because you're right, you would need to submit a new letter. So the league is just going to let that one stand on its own, I believe.
So, and I have to say, we haven't read them in great detail, but you're saying it's opt-in for anybody at this point?
That's my understanding, yes. So.
Okay, Drew.
Yeah, I was just curious on AB 2580, why we wouldn't oppose, given that it certainly goes against local control if it's like a one size fits all. And I know in our city, we certainly wouldn't want to allow that a motel under ministerial rights gets the ability to convert to housing, especially on the east side of Pacific Coast Highway, which is no residential whatsoever. So I'm sure other cities have similar concerns. I just don't know why we wouldn't oppose that one right off the bat.
I actually was playing around with that in my mind, and then I thought it hadn't been to the steering committee. So it's really up to you.
I can help with that if you'd like. We would expect that these hotels that would be converted are the ones that are typically not the moneymakers. They're typically the rundown motels, very small that you see in some places. These would not be the larger places that are actually bringing in revenue. So in order to sort of be ripe for conversion, they would need to, more than likely, they would need to be the sort of the rundown, out-of-date ones that aren't being well used.
Jeff, with that in mind, what the concern that Drew is effectuating, right, is well, partly one that's really specific to his city, right? On the east side of PCH, you cannot have residential, as El Segundo doesn't. So in that situation, you know, is there any text in the bill that has carve-outs for areas that are not zoned to allow for residential, I guess?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay.
I'm even thinking of Manhattan Beach. I know Hildy's on. I think I saw her there. I mean, they've got couple small little motels that right along Highland, I think, if I remember correctly, that you wouldn't necessarily want to just allow universally to be able to be. I mean, it sounds like you wouldn't be able to dispute it as a city. A developer came in and said, I'm converting this motel to a housing development. The way this is written, the summary, of course, you wouldn't be able to dispute that. Is that right? So yeah, for that, if that's the case, I certainly would not support it as written.
Okay. Yes, Rodney, go ahead. And then we'll.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying about you know, hotels that maybe aren't doing well, but who's going to make that determination? Who's the one that comes in and says, "Well, you're not coming up to standards, so we're going to turn you into a housing"? I mean, that kind of takes away from local stuff, doesn't it? Jeff?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Yes, it is. You know, the understanding I haven't read the bill in detail, but it would totally be up to the developer. But I just don't see a lot. And obviously the cities on this call do have some concerns. So that certainly makes sense. But the league is going to remain neutral, I believe, on this one.
Thank you.
Olivia and then Ralph.
Yes, I have a concern. I would not be in favor of this of approving this bill either. As far as Hawthorne is concerned, we're already extremely dense, and you know, part of the problem that we've always had is that you know, that the developers have been given the option to build and been given density bonuses, and as a result, our city is extremely dense with housing, and we really do want to move away from the ability of allowing housing as a by right process. So I would really be opposed to this. And again, I agree with Drew that it removes local control from the picture.
Okay, thank you, Ralph.
Well, those same sentiments, particularly if the cities do a general plan, and to have our local control be taken away from us would change the footprint that the governing body of the city has vested as to the way we want to see the development of our city to go. And we dictated that, no, we now have to allow housing to come in, whether it's commercial, hotels, motels being converted. I think it sends the wrong message. And I would be in opposition of losing local control. Thank you.
Okay. Are there why don't we just stay here with AB 2580? Are there any other comments or questions related to it? All right, seeing none, is there, Stacy, go ahead.
I just had one concern with losing TOT income for communities as well.
Thank you, valid point. Okay, why don't we just take a position or decide to take a position on this now? Is there a motion related to AB 2580?
I'll move oppose.
I second.
All right, so that's a move from El Segundo and a second from Gardina. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, I'll abstain, Christian.
Okay, abstention from Jennifer.
Chair, also Lacey Johnson, who is having mic issues, is also abstaining from all legislative positions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lacey and Jennifer.
Not too loud.
Sorry? All right, 2 abstentions on that one. Okay. All right. Is there any other comments or questions related to the other items that Jackie addressed on the legislative report?
You know, one thing now I have Jeff on the line. Hey, I hope there's a lot of opposition to density now with this COVID-19, because it proves in New York and LA County, the more people you have, the more deaths. And I'm concerned with the RENA process recently, we're going to put another 1 million people in the South Bay, right? Or the LA, county coastal areas. That should be brought up there. I've talked to our state representatives about it, and I hope all of you are too. Christian, you don't want to have all these homes built in Redondo, do you? And you did 25, 30 years ago.
Sure, let's just add more homelessness. And yep, there's a demand and a supply issue, Jim. This is not an agenda item. We talking RENA? Is that on the agenda? We
but I can make my voice, my opinion.
And housing.
Okay,
sure.
point, Mr. Gaisley, point taken. Thank you. And Councilmember Buscaino, you're correct. It isn't on the agenda, but I think he's just making a point related to some of the density issues on the bill. I
was wondering if Jeff's getting what's going on in Sacramento, if anyone's talking about it. That's all I've asked.
Okay, Jeff, do you have any feedback on that?
No, I haven't really heard that argument made too much. Dr. Ferrara was on with the division board just yesterday and was sort of talking to that and suggesting that is something of a myth. But I know our policy committee, housing specifically, will be taking many of these bills up next week and discussing a lot of it. So we'll sort of see if the COVID-19 has had an impact on that policy committee and which direction they want to go.
Okay, I'm going to move on then. So SB 795, the recommendation is support. Is there any questions, comments, concerns around that? Seeing none, is there a motion to continue to support SB 795? All right, seeing no motion, then that's gonna stay as support. Okay, AB 3107 from Assemblymember Bloom. It's a move from a monitor to recommend oppose based on the responses given by your city's community development directors. Questions, comments related to 3107?
Motion to oppose.
Okay, Cedric, motion to oppose.
Second.
And was that you, Olivia?
Yeah.
Okay, and a second from Olivia. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? I assume Jennifer and Lacey, the abstention on that?
Yes, please, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then SB 902, Senator Wiener's bill. The recommendation is to oppose the by right provisions. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Okay, you so move to oppose, Ralph, okay?
That is
Jackie,
correct.
you had a comment?
Well, I was just going to say that if you want to oppose it, fine. If you want us to read the bill and leave it with the chair's discretion as to whether the bill is substantially changed, but you know, if you're fine with taking action tonight, that's okay.
Okay.
I did check the bill language. It's the language is that a local government may pass this this change. So it's not a requirement. It is an opt-in provision only.
Okay. Ralph, does that change your motion?
No, I still stay status quo.
Okay. Is there a second to Councilmember Franklin's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's a second from Kenny in Palos Verdes Estates. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, are there any opposed? All right, and I will again assume 2 abstentions from the county. Okay, Jackie, was $12.99 on that, or?
Yes, $12.99 as well.
Okay, $12.99 is a recommend support. It's Senator Portantino. Any discussion, comments, questions around?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion from B.
Second.
Was that you, Britt?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So a second from Britt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? And then abstentions from the county. All right. I think that puts us through the entire ledge calendar there. All right. Thank you all. All right. South Bay Fiber Network update. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay. As you remember from the last meeting, we were able to get money from Metro for additional money so that we could continue doing the fiber network and making sure we can build it out. In record time, and I just am amazed, we have our funding agreement from Metro. This is a big deal because usually the funding agreement takes 3 to 6 months, and the Metro staff person expedited it. It's on Phil Washington's desk. We will, which means the money can start flowing right away. At the next month's meeting, you probably will get another work order. We're very excited that Metro is moving this fast. Our team, which is American Dark Fiber, HP Communications, and Race, has been discussing the construction. And we have been very, as you know, we've been very slow getting cities to sign the service agreement. And it turns out it's just like sitting on people's desks. There doesn't seem to be a problem. Today we received Redondo Beach, I think Gardena, and Palos Verdes Estates. So we're very excited about that. The construction, we're working on the core ring, the completion of the core ring and the laterals are being worked on right now. Apparently there's going to be a phase that's done around June 22nd, and that will include Gardena, the WIB in Gardena, Lomita, El Segundo is already connected, Rolling Hills, Rancho Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills Estates, and Carson, although Carson will not be getting service, they will be connected. Phase 2 might be a little later. There seem to be some COVID challenges that are causing the work to slip a little bit, and I'm going to learn more about this on Monday. But the remainder of the city's Beach Cities Health District and the WIB and Metro would be complete in July. And hopefully the schedule won't slip, but it looks like we're a little concerned that it might. We're up to over $15,000 of monthly cost commitments coming in. As you know, we need 35,000, and so we're still waiting on more agreements, which we hope to get in the next month. So the fiber network is moving along, and what we're going to be doing is, we're now looking at lunch and learns, ideas for applications that cities might be interested in using this fiber network to do. And we'll be probably working on scheduling those and maybe having a report for you at the next meeting. So, okay. That completes that report.
Okay. Any questions, comments related to South Bay Fiber Network?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Olivia.
Jackie, our council approved the agreement on Tuesday night.
Oh, I think it was, yes, it was you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, and so you should be getting the agreement soon. If you do not, let me know, please.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? George, did I see you raise your hand or no?
Yes, Jackie, maybe I didn't know, maybe this some action was taken prior to me coming on board. Do you know where the city of Torrance is with respect to the contract? And then in the package, I don't think I saw the dark fiber in this package. Was there something in here?
No, no, it's an oral report. I think Torrance was one of the first cities to sign. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay, and staff should be still coordinating with each of your cities if you are still working on that. Okay, senior services, Britt?
Yes, we met this week after not meeting for several months, but we met by Zoom and we had all of the cities were represented, so that was great, a good turnout. We did get a update from PATH, which is the People Assisting the Homeless, and there are 3 cities that are providing hotel arrangements for the homeless, 2 in Lawndale, 1 in Lomita, and 1 in San Pedro. So the county is hoping to get 15,000 rooms identified for the housing of the homeless. And yeah, I've heard from some city representatives that all has not gone real smoothly, but hoping they will iron out the details on that. Also, we had a speaker from Dr. Donna Benton, who is a professor, gerontology professor at USC, and she's the director of the USC Family Caregiver Support Center. And she's part of the stakeholder committee for the Master Plan on Aging, which is a 10-year project. And they just sent their list of 5 objectives for long-term support services to the governor, which most of you probably heard in terms of the budget recommendations from Newsom. He is proposing deep cuts to senior services, including the elimination of the multi-purpose senior services program, MSSP, and the community-based adult services, CDAS, as early as July. So that's not looking real good. Fortunately, this is a 10-year project, so hopefully after COVID and in coming years, we will get some better support from the state. But anyway, we're pretty discouraged about the budget situation. Anything else that you can think of, Jackie, out of that meeting?
Grace, anything you want to pepper in there?
No, I think Britt covered it all. So thank you.
All right, perfect. Are there any questions for Britt?
Joe Buscaino.
Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Britt, thanks so much for the report. We were one of the first to launch the Project Room Key in San Pedro, and I encourage all cities to do the same, South Bay cities to do the same. Our experience was flawless with the county and the hotel operator.
Good.
Oh yeah, we were able to relocate 100 homeless individuals into a safe, secured hotel, thankfully, and we brought on the Salvation Army. I was able to bring in Manhattan Beach Mayor Rich Montgomery. Also, he's on my executive committee of National League of Cities, and he was really impressed by the operation. I also offered Mayor Robles from Carson. But I want to do the same for my colleagues here at South Bay COG. If you are interested in Project Room Key, if you have a hotel in your city, I'll be more than happy to walk you through ours here at the Sunrise Hotel in San Pedro. Want to recognize Jim's leadership and his colleagues in the city of Lomita, of course, Lawndale, for moving on their Project Room Keys as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah,
Thank you for that feedback, because I
Go ahead,
think that the good news that you had a positive experience there. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Mayor Pro Tem Bernadette Suarez, and I just wanted to say a few things about the whole process because we have 2 hotels, and it wasn't as smooth as San Pedro's experience. We had both of them happen without our knowledge. We had to reach out to the county numerous times. We did receive some threats from them that if we tried to halt the project in any way, we would be sued. So it's something that we're working through, but we just hope that the county will, listen to other cities if they are planning to put hotels in there, that they listen to their concerns because, we had a lot of residents. Our 2 hotels are less than half a mile apart. And so it would have been nice to have been involved in those initial conversations because it's something that, we owe to our residents too, to let them know what's going on. And if it's happening and they're starting to see, they come to us and then we're not quite sure what's going on. So I just hope that the county, engages those other cities that are planning to have hotels, engages them initially so that they have something that they can let their residents know.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Good feedback. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I will say I'm working right now with the county to try to get a location in Redondo Beach. And the program has been incredibly helpful for our homeless community. I think at last count, we've moved 25 people off of the streets and into a PRK situation. So, all right. Then moving on, homeless services. Grace?
Okay, well, everyone's already stolen my thunder. So, but just real briefly, just some updates, again, on Project Room Key is throughout LA County, 3,000 people have been placed into various hotels. And then in the South Bay specifically, we've had 408 people go into the hotels as part of Project Room Key. And to address Councilmember Suarez's comments, my understanding now is that the county, everything's evolving with the county because, they started off doing it one way and are realizing that there need to be some changes and more involvement with our cities. So my understanding now is that as the agreements are getting closer with the hotels in a city, then the city manager is notified of that. And also, when contracts are executed, the COG is notified of that, and then we get notification out as well to our homeless services contact and the city manager. So I know when the second one came online in Lawndale, I sent out notification immediately to Michael Reyes with the city of Lawndale. So hopefully, it does get better as we move on. And just to remind people that these are 3-month contracts at this point, but the county will renew those contracts for a little bit longer. So it's 3 months from when the contract is signed. So for instance, if a hotel came on board yesterday, it's 3 months from yesterday, and then potentially looking forward. I do know that the county is working really hard trying to find some, develop exit strategies for once this crisis is over, and people need to hopefully find some other type of permanent housing arrangement. And then there is a food vendor who provides packaged foods, 3 meals a day. They're microwavable meals. I believe a good number of our hotels throughout LA County are being serviced by Every Table. I understand the Lomita Hotel has a new vendor called Cruise. And then screenings happen whenever the meals are delivered. So there is health professionals that accompany the DSWs who are delivering the meals door to door to ensure that safe practices are being adhered to. And then the other big exciting news, and I don't want to steal Councilmember Buscaino's thunder, but we've got 2 bridge homes that are going to be opening in early July, one in San Pedro and one in Wilmington. So that's very exciting. Harbor Interfaith will be the service provider in San Pedro, and US Vets will be the service provider in Wilmington. So that's it. That's what I have. Anyone have any questions?
Okay, so who's going to match my 200 beds? Raise your hand. Let me see it. Come on. Regional strategies. We need each other.
We're trying, man. We are trying.
Appreciate
All
it.
right. Britt.
I just wanted to confirm with Grace that my understanding is that PATH staff are working with these people who as they move into the hotel rooms to plot, a strategy forward of getting permanent housing and working with them with any social issues that might be interfering with that.
So what happens is it's not necessarily PATH, but there is a service provider that is attached to each of the hotels. So
Okay.
as Councilmember Buscaino mentioned, Salvation Army is at Sunrise. We've got Harbor Interfaith is in Lomita. PATH is at one of the Lawndale hotels. I do not know who's at the other one at this point. But we do have mental health practitioners out there, health services practitioners out there to deal with some of the various issues that some of these individuals may be facing.
Good.
So yeah, they've deployed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it is great because we now have folks that haven't always been easy to find on the street, and so they're in one area, so it might be easier making plans moving forward in terms of getting them into some type of permanent housing situation.
Good.
Okay, any other questions?
Grace, this is Jim Gaisley. You know, you did speak with us at length, and we're happy to help. But, you know, we discussed an exit plan sometime because we told you before, the hotel we're using is really our only large one in our city. It's majority of the rental units. And we're hoping, you know, eventually that we'll be able to, you know, use it it is in our codes. So, but you don't have an exit plan yet.
Not yet, but I've been on the county calls, and as soon as I know anything, I will definitely get information to Jackie, who can get it out to spread the word.
Yeah, but so far, hey, you know, it's been working okay. You know, we haven't had any major problems.
Good, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Grace. Other, Jackie, do you have anything else?
Very briefly on other. Yesterday we had a telework workshop for your staff. I think it was extremely well received. We had a national expert, Elham Shirazi, who gave the workshop. It's posted on our website if you're interested in seeing it. And we're doing a survey, and if your staff has any questions, we have people on staff that can answer those questions. So we hope that your cities will start adopting hybrid systems, because people, you know, it would make a significant difference to our traffic and our stress levels if people were able to telecommute certain times of the week, not necessarily every day. We're doing our office move-in, although we don't have a date to move in, but we're there. We're putting boxes away, and we'll let you know when it's available for all of us to be going into. And I think that's it for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Transportation reports. Steve.
Yeah. Hi. Let me turn on my video here a sec. There I am. Okay, so Metro had a very busy day today. The Crenshaw LAX contractor was reported to be able to complete construction by December. And with 4 or 5 months after that for testing, Metro expects to open in May 2021. The Centinela grade separation design work was approved on the consent agenda. Most of the meeting was spent on COVID, and please allow me to give you a little detail on that. It's Metro has lost 70 to 80% of its weekly bus and rail ridership during this. and they've lost 95% of their fare revenue. The sales tax revenues are down 32% in March. Projected loss of $1 billion in sales tax revenue over 2 years, and another $440 million in lost toll revenues. So Metro has huge impacts. And there's another little one that apparently the governor did a sales tax deferral for small business in California. That's going to cost Metro $200 million in cash flow. Because it's a deferral, eventually they'll get it back. But for now, over the summer, through September, they are in a big world of hurt for money. Their response, first of all, the CARES Act that we all thought would be bailing them out is about $1 billion in LA County, but it's a grant program that reimburses on an invoice basis the work that you've done starting in January. Even though it's 100% reimbursable, Metro doesn't expect to see any money until September or October on that reimbursement. They're keeping track of all the expenses, but they've got to go through some hoops to get the thing, to get the money flowing. Right now, the ridership has increased about 5,000 each week. So they're up over 411,000 daily riders. And they're assigning buses on a daily and weekly basis to where they see overcrowding. They're monitoring it very closely. They expect to have a new baseline starting in June. Phil Washington put together his Metro Mobility and Affordability Plan, call to action, knowing he needs to reduce expenditures $100 million a month through September. At that point, he'll bring next year's budget back to the board. So there's a continuing resolution to keep going on this year's budget through September. Consultants have been asked to voluntarily reduce their fees, their profits, by 2%, to reduce staffing levels, and to freeze pay raises until the outlook improves. Then Phil has put the projects into 2 buckets. Bucket number 1 is the work that will continue, and that's basically operations work and safety work, buying protective equipment, things like that. Keeping up with debt service. Any project that's already in a construction contract will continue. Everything else goes into Phil's bucket 2. Bucket 2 defers $82 million by September. So he can save $100 million or more or so. The board listened to this and basically said, we want to continue development of the 4 pillar projects. If you remember, the South Bay extension to Torrance was one of those 4 pillar projects that were supposed to get done by the Olympics in 2028. The board voted not to slow that down, so that the continuing development work will occur on that. Stuff in the South Bay that is in his bucket 2 includes the Centinela grade separation construction, not design, but construction, the I-105 express lanes, the South Bay Highway operational improvement projects that are not underway. Remember, we've got a Metro budget request in on that. Curiously, the multi-year sub-regional program, we have 3 of those programs in the South Bay, has not yet been assigned to either bucket 1 or 2. It was brought up by Janice Hahn that it was missing. He said he would return next month with a recommendation. And finally, the board passed a motion to reduce monthly passes by 50% for the next 6 months, the cost of passes, under Metro's promotional fare policy, which allows them to do that. And they asked Phil to report back in 30 days on a plan to reduce daily fares at a comparable level. And Metro is working on a comprehensive fare policy to restructure fares. Doesn't mean it will necessarily save money. It may just reallocate the pain and the benefits. If you can drop one costs here, you may have to increase costs elsewhere. So he should come back, he said, in I think 60 days with that plan. That's the report from Metro. Questions?
Any questions for Steve?
I have one, Christian.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
Steve, of the
couple dozen projects we have for the Measure R and Measure M fundings. You probably said this already, but how does that affect? Is that bucket 1 or bucket 2? I wasn't following the logic on that.
There isn't any answer to that. He's coming back next month. Remember, we adopted a Metro budget request last March, and we asked them to approve it. We think they're going to try to get that recommendation coming forward in June. So we don't know whether Phil is going to intercede and put those projects in a bucket. But for now, we expect that there's going to be action in June. They have no meeting in July. So if they don't do it in June, the decision might come in August.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have a little more clarity by the time we get to our June steering committee too, so we can advocate.
Yeah. Remember, advocacy at Metro, everything is being done virtually. So if we do anything, it'll have to be a letter that gets written into the record. There's no public appearances at Metro's headquarters. It's closed.
Correct. All right. If there's no other questions, then we're moving on to item B, which is the Metro Service Council appointments. There is an attachment. Ralph, I'm going to turn this over to you in case you would, as the chair, would just like to quickly explain and talk about it.
Yes, well, thank you so much. If everyone will go to, I think we are on pages 85, 86, just to let you know that there were the board is consisting of a maximum of 4 elected officials and 5 predominantly writers, and one of those would include LAWA. And particularly when we have 3 seats that came up, 1 seat particularly came up when the person that was currently seated, which was Dan Medina, had to vacate his seat on the council, so he's no longer active as a city council member, and that he still wanted to be a writer. However, there was 9 applicants that expressed strong interest to fill not 3 positions, but then 4 positions, because I opted, and my position was up, but I still opted to no longer serve. And that being the case, there was 4 positions. There was 9 candidates, and out of the 9, I think 7 actually participated in the interviews. And there was a strong interview panel, and I must compliment our chair, Christian. He did an outstanding job, and all of us was allowed to give input, ask questions, etc. And then we finally narrowed it down, and we unanimously agreed, based on the region, the ethnic, age, etc., based of the makeup of what currently exists with the Metro South Bay Service Council, to what we needed to add with individuals that were complementary and prepared to take off running, was the following individuals. Do I make that announcement now, Christian?
Yes, please go ahead.
So the recommendation on page 85 is Louis Theron, who is still, he would be an incumbent, and he resides in the city of Hawthorne. And he's an active member, works in LA, but he's a very active member on our group and is a well reserved for another term of office. Glenda Silva is the representative from LAWA. She clearly would like to make sure she's on board, because with the People Mover project that's going to tie into the Crenshaw LAX line and what's going on in the airport, she has vital information and is directly in contact daily with reference to what's going on with the People Mover in the airport. When it came to David Match, he's an employee of Torrance Transit. Clearly, he works under the umbrella of Kim Turner, who now will become an opportunity as a representative, as a Muni operator, as well as he rides the buses daily. So another good recommendation. And then Rochelle Maccabee is ideal. She comes to the Metro Service Council meetings now and engages the community. She really focuses a lot as a senior although she lives in the Willowbrooks Watts area, she works regularly in the city of Inglewood, which would then cover the Inglewood area. And on that note, I would then highly recommend to this board that we honor the recommendation from the steering committee. And I will take questions or comments.
Okay. Any
Can
questions?
Can I
Yes,
just
go
make
ahead.
one comment? Our sector council actually goes to the Watts Willowbrook area, I think. So the Rochelle McAbee represents both Inglewood and the Watts Willowbrook area.
All right. Are there any questions for Ralph? All right. If not, I just want to say thank you to John, Kenny, Drew, and Ralph for participating in the interviews. I appreciate your time that day. So with that said, the recommendation is before you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
All right. Motion from Ralph.
Second.
I didn't catch that. Who was that?
Jim Gaisley.
Oh, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Sorry. All right. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Unanimous. Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. All right. Before we get to talking about COVID-19, since Joe is with us today, as well as Denny Shaw. Joe, do you have any updates from AQMD that you want to share?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As we know, with this uncharted territory, we at AQMD, we still have to meet federal and state mandates to meet air quality attainment. We had a good month in April for air quality, not the way we want to do it with folks staying home, but it is what it is. May wasn't as good. It's kind of a complicated answer with complex environmental chemistry and sources, but this highlights mobile sources, as we all know, has been the #1 emitter of pollutants in our region, and significant impacts in our basin. So hopefully what we have seen over the last couple of months, this motivates CARB to move faster on statewide regulations and not rely solely on South Coast to lead the charge. Know that the board will be meeting next week. Some exciting items I'd like to share with you. The approval of an electric truck demonstration project with Daimler Trucks North America. They will build 35 electric trucks and let 9 of the largest fleet carriers use them for 2 months. It will help show the carriers that these electric trucks work, especially through the long hauls, as good as any diesel natural gas fleet trucks, knowing that they're just as dependable. And as chair of the AQMD Tech Committee, really happy to advance this effort forward. You should all know that we're receiving more money on our Replace Your Ride program. This program has been very successful. It gives folks $10,000 to qualified low-income individuals to purchase an all-electric vehicle. The applicant needs to own an old functioning vehicle and qualify by income. We'll also have a presentation on the emissions reductions and air quality impacts from COVID-19. So with that, as you know, Jacob Haig on my staff is my AQMD liaison. And if you have any questions or comments, please turn to me or Jacob. That's my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe? All right. Well, then we are done with the business for the meeting. So the item that we moved was just a discussion around city responses to COVID-19 and reopening strategies and challenges. We did this at the head of last meeting, so we'll just do this until our time expires this evening or anybody wants to pop off. But why don't we just go around the circle here and see where people are at. I'm just going to call you in the order you are on my screen. So Drew, I know you in Manhattan and now the Hill have all sent letters. You want to talk about just some of the things you're doing in El Segundo and what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. We have our fire chief recently defined a new term, which is essentially it's active cases. So in El Segundo, we only have 2 active COVID-19 cases. We've remained steady, 32 cases in total for the last 4 or 5 days. There's a little bit of blip in reporting. And we felt pretty strongly. So we're doing phone calls with the South Bay, with the other beach cities, I should say, everyone from the peninsula up to El Segundo, with Supervisor Hahn, and her and Jennifer and the entire staff have been really helpful. Jennifer, thanks for all that. So we made progress on the beachfront. We came up with a cohesive plan. Dr. Ferrer actually mentioned that today on her county call about how we should get together again as a group and come forward with a plan for volleyball specifically. And because there's a lot of momentum, Stacey, I'm sure you're hearing it in your backyard, just Goldie as well. There's a ton of momentum for volleyball. So last week we wrote a letter to Supervisor Hahn asking her to make a plea with Governor Newsom to carve out. We knew it was a long shot to get LA County to stage 3 because with 10 million people, it's just the criteria aren't going to be met in terms of variance to move towards phase 3. So we wrote a letter asking Supervisor Hahn to make a request of the governor to move her county district only towards phase 3, as we feel strongly that we've got it much more in control than other parts of LA County. And then she then did an urgency motion on, I think, Tuesday, right, Jennifer? Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Her and Supervisor Barger, kind of a similar request, and then they wanted a closed session. I think the Board of Supervisors came back and unanimously supported writing a letter to the Governor Newsom to move to stage, to open up restaurants essentially, and some other things. And I think you're like probably on pins and needles waiting, Jennifer, right? Any day now, possibly tomorrow or Monday, to see whether or not that happens. And we are, we saw what Manhattan Beach did. We think that was a pretty bold move with retail. Our city council doesn't feel, well, they have a different opinion in terms of whether or not we should take a similar tack. We're mostly concerned about gyms and health facilities. I also asked Dr. Ferrer about that today, and with very restrictive conditions, could they open? And obviously the answer is no still, and that we'd have to wait for the state. So sorry if I was long-winded. That's all I got.
Thanks. Hildy?
Hi, thank you. So again, just to reiterate what Drew said, we are looking very much at a slow and cautious, but an anxious environment of opening up our business community. And interestingly, Drew, that you said that we took a bold step. It might have been a little bit of a misunderstood step. We didn't open retail ourselves, but we're very happy when retail was opened up on Monday for our community. So, we're doing all of these things because we have a lot of a large business community, and that's a great interest for our community. And we're also taking different steps in our community to look at other creative ways to support our business community while waiting for the decisions from the county and from the state. So, we have a group that's getting together and trying to design ways to support more outdoor dining that we don't necessarily have right now, because we know when indoor dining opens that it's not going to be to the full capacity of our restaurants, and they need additional capacity. So in addition to working with the other South Bay communities and being in very frequent contact with Jennifer, thank you for so much patience and so much responsiveness, because we've all been just clamoring to get answers, and we're contacting you often, and I appreciate you being so responsive back. We are, just continuing to find ways to continue to advocate for our communities, and honestly, our residents are, we are challenged by, people being very anxious to just get back to normal. And so we are continuing to try to message that the social distancing and the wearing of face coverings is so important. we are, we're trying to keep that on top of mind, because while our numbers are pretty stable and we're happy with our numbers, we don't want that to change. So, I think we in the South Bay communities might all be having the same experiences. That's pretty much my.
Thanks. George?
Thank you, Drew. I think next week we're going to start our budget exercises. I think we're probably, outside of Joe, we're probably one of the largest city in the COG here. And so we have major revenue exercise we're doing, probably looking at how do we balance next year's budget on the order of $25 million, that range. We've been working with our businesses, a lot of meetings on how to open up. And thank you again, Jennifer. I know that I reached out to Jennifer, to Supervisor Hahn's office for help. We have 45 deaths, unfortunately, in Torrance, and 40 of which are all in our senior care nursing facilities. So it's very isolated, and I think that probably represents a lot of deaths that we can, hopefully that the county has the Inspector General assigned to really tighten up and protect all the residents of that area, I believe. Once we can do that at the county level, then most residents and the businesses would feel a little bit more comfortable. I feel comfortable going around in the city of Torrance because I know that our deaths are isolated in the senior care nursing area. We also have been working on design concepts on how to open up restaurant seating capacity outdoors as well. So I think we're ready to open up. So our residents are very antsy, and we're just trying to, we're fully in support of what Drew, their city for opening up the phase 3. We're right with you. I think the South Bay here, I think we're in pretty good shape. At least that's how I look at the data. So let's stay together and move forward. Thank you.
Sure. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just commend all local leaders, not only here within our South Bay community, but throughout this region and state. I have seen how during a crisis, how our leadership is tested, our faith is tested. On the national level, I've seen local elected leaders in preparation for the budget, as George has mentioned, how they have to make some really critical choices. So I just want to acknowledge each and every one of you for the role that you're playing, and our residents are turning to us for guidance and direction amidst this pandemic. Here in CD15 in my council district, when the Safer at Home order was initiated, it was important for us to move on stimulating the economy and not waiting for post-pandemic. And we did so by using discretionary funds in my office and hiring and contracting with our local restaurants to feed the most vulnerable in my district, the disabled residents and also our senior residents. In addition to that, we raised $1 million of private funds to pay for the meal program. It was delivered to 1,000 high-risk community members. We have to date have fed or prepared over 20,000 meals using restaurants up and down from Watts all the way down to San Pedro. We were also, I know it was critical for us to seek donations for PPE. We have delivered over 50,000 facial masks to local hospitals, clinics, and first responders. As you know, we've used our park gyms for the homeless individuals, and we've been participating, as I mentioned earlier, in the Project Room Key. And as far as moving on continued development and economic development, we've created a plan to have contactless plans dropped off at our planning and Department of Building and Safety. We've had virtual public hearing process that's also begun, allowing residents to have public comment heard on projects. Part of our reopening strategies, you're going to see tomorrow, taking the lead, and we wanted to serve as a model for throughout the city of LA on our Summer in the Streets program, where once restaurants are open, we'll be able to use the public right of way, very similar to what they're doing in Long Beach, to use sidewalks and streets and adjacent parking lots to expand the footprint, so restaurants are able to operate while respecting social distancing until they are at 100% capacity. So tomorrow, know that we'll have our trial run in downtown San Pedro, and we expect this to follow citywide. We're also exploring possibilities for continuing telecommuting for some industries to maintain the positive impact to reduce driving that has had on our environment. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to also, if I can put a plug, our colleague Richard Montgomery, the mayor of Manhattan Beach, she's on my executive committee for National League of Cities. Carolyn Coleman, of course, League of California Cities, is on our board, and she serves on my executive committee. And as president of NLC, we've been working really hard with the federal government to ensure that municipalities of all sizes, that all populations are heard, and that federal dollars are streamlined to local governments. And I do want to thank George for joining us back in March when at our congressional conference, and of course Richard. But the National League of Cities, we've launched a Cities Are Essential campaign, and I've been on the phone with congressional members, both sides of the aisle. I had a call with Speaker Pelosi last week on her HEROES bill. There's another bipartisan bill that's moving. It's called SMART Act, that will filter billions of dollars into local municipalities. As you know, the CARES Act only benefited cities to, over 500,000 in population, which here in LA, in the city of LA, we were one of like 15 cities. But I put on my NLC hat, and I said that was unjust and not fair. As a representative of the National League of Cities of 19,000 cities, towns, and villages of all sizes, every city should have the ability and have the opportunity to take advantage of direct federal funding and take advantage of federal aid. So just know that there's a couple of bills moving, and we're hopeful that Congress passes those bills so we can address those budget shortfalls, so that we're not in a position to cut police and fire and sanitation workers. So with that, thank you, and that's my report.
Thanks. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too will echo all the sentiments of my fellow mayors and council members that have spoken. And I do want to give a shout out to Supervisor Hahn and Nick and Jamie in her office. They've really been supporting us over the last several weeks to try to get things slowly open for all of us here. So as you probably know, Rancho Palos Verde has been supporting our neighbors to the north to open their beaches, and we're happy to see that beaches and bike paths are open in Rancho Palos Verdes. And I have a cohort there, Mayor Pro Tem Eric Alegria and I, and our city manager, Ara Marani, and we've been working very hard with pretty much everyone on this call to figure out ways to get everything open. And so all our parks and trails are open now. They have been very crowded because people aren't going on vacation like normal. So they're finding the Del Cerro trails and our facilities is a good place to come out. And so we, of course, welcome everyone to come enjoy our trails. We've reopened our city facilities. City Hall's reopened with safety precautions. And as mentioned, we do fully support the county's move to get a state variance. We're hoping to hear, I guess the county's hoping to hear either tomorrow or Saturday in regards to that variance. And so once that happens, it's going to be a big change for all of us. Most importantly for our city of Rancho Palos Verdes is that now that hotels, motels are allowed to open, and also pools are allowed to open, we believe that our resort Terranea, which is a good big portion of our revenues in our city, will finally be able to open on June 12th. So that's the opening date. So we're really looking forward to that. They employ more than 1,200 people. So that means quite a bit to many people and their jobs and families. Other than that, we want to continue working with all of you and looking forward to all of our businesses being open soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Britt?
Yes, Rolling Hills Estates, we feel very blessed that we've only had 14 cases of the COVID virus and no deaths. And that's emboldened our business and citizens to want to move ahead. So we're working with our chamber and local businesses, manager of our shopping area, the Promenade, to just hopefully make that happen, having people ready for that. And we're also excited about the prospects of restaurants being able to open and making plans to help support them in terms of providing perhaps sidewalk and street access, parking lots for outdoor dining, and then also the hair salons and barbershops opening. And yeah, people are also clamoring for the gyms to be opened, and it's going to be maybe a little bit harder, but people are very anxious for that. So we're hoping to make that possible in the near future too. So thank you.
Thank you. Stacy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We recently developed an economic development committee. It'll be a Brown Act committee that's going to be working on recovery efforts with our businesses. We started taking applications today for outdoor retail and outdoor dining in public and private spaces. We are sending a letter, either going out today or tomorrow, supporting our neighboring cities' efforts and the county's efforts for a variance. We extended our eviction and foreclosure moratorium through the end of July. We are continuing to keep our beach parking lots and structures closed to try to minimize crowds on the beach and in our downtown and in Pier Plaza. And when we had to close down the beach and the Strand, we hired 8 security officers to kind of line the Strand to help us make sure that people would maintain social distancing and or stay off the Strand and the beach. And at this point, they're more serving as educators to people traversing along the Strand, and it seems to be working out okay. And those are my updates. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. So gosh, I feel like so much has happened in the last couple days. So just to take it back a couple days, as you know, Supervisor Hahn wrote a letter to the governor last Thursday asking for him to allow for in-store retail statewide. She thought that, that through this process, we've picked winners and losers, with the big box stores being able to sell things, and with the smaller stores that sell the same things not being able to be open for in-store shopping. So we heard on Monday that he had updated the health order to allow for that. And then the county in turn updated its health order. Drew mentioned earlier about the motion on Tuesday. Supervisor Hahn co-authored a motion with Supervisor Barger that initially sought to allow for cities and regions to be able to apply for a variance. But there was not consensus among the board members. So the compromise was to move forward with applying for a variance for the entire county. And that was submitted yesterday, and we're expecting a response as early as tomorrow on that. And Dr. Ferrer and the board are hopeful that he will sign off on it. And that will allow us to open up in-person dining as well as hair salons and barbershops. Nail salons will be a little further down the road. Beyond that, the Economic Resiliency Task Force has been meeting meeting, as well as the smaller sector-based subcommittees. We have some local folks serving on those, including Donna Dupron from the Torrance Chamber and others. But yeah, so we're just, you know, on pins and needles waiting to hear, and again, expecting that answer tomorrow.
Thanks, Jennifer. I think all of us can second Hildy's acknowledgement that you've been an enormous resource for all of us when we're reaching out. So thanks for making yourself
very much
available at all times of the day and night. Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And not to be repetitive, but I would also like to thank the supervisor and Jennifer and the entire staff for their assistance and their leadership in seeking out a variance. So thank you for that. Also want to extend a shout out to the group of mayors that have been meeting on a regular basis with Supervisor Hahn. I know that our mayor, David McGowan, has appreciated that. And it makes sense that we're all reopening in conjunction and in coordination with one another. So I think that's the prudent thing to do. And I know that this coordinated reopening has meant a lot to us, as opposed to just each city doing its own thing. Palos Verdes Estates has 42 cases. Fortunately, no deaths so far. Recreationally, we've opened up our trails and our parking lots. Activities-wise, our clubs are open with operational differences. Like tennis is not tennis as we know it, golf is not golf as we know it, but at least people are getting out there. So I know that they're very appreciative of that. The biggest news for us is we hired a new city manager. I'm quite certain that this is the first time we've ever hired a city manager through solely Zoom conferences. And she is someone who hails from John's city of Rancho Palos Verdes, but is in fact has spent her career in Joe's city of Los Angeles, Laura Guglielmo, whom I'm sure he knows well. So she will be starting, I believe, on June 15th. So we're all excited about it. We're all very supportive of her, and it'll be nice to actually see and meet her in the flesh when that time comes. Hasn't happened just yet.
Thanks, Ken. Olivia?
Thank you. I want to actually, I am going to be a little repetitive in talking about some of the things that my colleagues have already spoken of. We also, our businesses are looking forward to opening up. Our parks are open. Our restaurants are open for takeout. They haven't, a lot of them are reconfiguring their restaurants so that they'll be ready for in-person dining whenever they're able to do so, and they're really looking forward to being able to do that. We joined with the mayor of Carson, Mayor Robles, in that letter requesting that the CARES Act funding be extended to cities under 500,000. And so, because right now any funding that we receive would have to go through the county. So we're trying to get that funding directed so that it would go directly to the cities under 500,000 residents. I don't know how many sign-ons he had for that. He was looking for all the cities in the South Bay area, but I don't, and I'm not sure if he got them all, but I think that he got a good percentage of them. So we signed on to that letter. We also extended our eviction moratorium through July, we have a testing center in the Hawthorne Memorial Center. There's testing going on a daily basis, Monday through Thursday from 9 to 4, and on Fridays from 9 to 3. So we're very proud of that. And and we hired a new assistant city manager. So a lot of the workload that Arnie has been shouldering by himself will now be moved on to Eric Lee. He is our new assistant city manager. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ralph?
Can I ask Olivia, are you getting a city manager?
He's the assistant city manager.
No, but I thought your city manager was retiring.
He hasn't retired yet.
Okay,
We're
thank you.
we're waiting to see when he is. We're letting him make the decision. I think that is the plan, but he's not. He hasn't retired yet.
Okay, Ralph.
Yeah, so first of all, let me just thank the LA County Board of Supervisors and the LA County Public Health Department for having their daily updates. We have been following their guidelines and recommendations throughout our city. We've also assisted a number of businesses on working on getting the funding that they may need in order to get the employees back to work, as well as being prepared with reference to getting the businesses to open up. In addition to that, we're not as fortunate as the cities I've heard so far. We have 560 cases of positive tested for COVID-19. Of those, we have 54 deaths. And as George said, we have the same impact. The majority of those deaths come from the nursing facilities. We also extended our executive order on the evictions, foreclosures for tenants and apartments, as well as the leasers for businesses to June 30th. We've also had City Hall only open available to the public by appointment only. And that has been occurring since April 16th. It's planning to continue until June 8th, at which time we plan to open up City Hall to just open up for people to walk in. We have preparations with security as you enter the building. They will go through a body scanner. So therefore we know that if there's a temperature issue that we'll be able to address that immediately. We also currently have a nurse on duty that all the employees that report for work must come to that nurse to be tested, temperature tested, which has been going very effectively. The city also has been able to work with the County Board of Supervisors and the County Public Health Department of having all of the city employees now, and next week will be the final week of every employee in the city hall that works will get the COVID-19 testing at the Forum parking lot, which is operated by oversaw by the LA County. And then finally, let me see what else. No, I just think that's it so far. Clearly, we constantly encourage people about the social distancing. We encourage also about masks. All the employees will be provided masks and have been provided masks on an ongoing basis, and that we will continue to monitor to make sure that we do everything we can to help suppress the amount of cases that come forth in our cities. But as you all know, we have that issue, and when people take it for granted and they want to not abide by the social distancing, we all suffer accordingly. On that note, thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Rodney? Just unmute.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so in the city of Gardena, so far, our EOC Center remains open on level 3, and we're continuing to give live information that's up to date. And we're using social media to make sure that all venues are being used so that people know what we're doing and what's happening in the county. Our city, unfortunately, has an unincorporated area around us, and I think it's Joe's area, but it's a zip code thing. So we show about 249 cases of COVID with 21 deaths, but we're not sure if it's all within our own domain. We had a nursing home issue where the National Guard came in, brought their medical staff in. They have since left, and we continue now to monitor our nursing homes to make sure that they're complying with everything. We're doing about 460 meals about 4 days a week for our seniors. We're doing, our pantry's doing food giveaways. in the last couple of weeks, because of Census 2020, we gave away 1,500 sandwiches that were given by one of our local venues so that we could get the 2020 census information out. So it was all free. You just drove up and you got a meal and census information. We've actually only given 7 sites so far with the stay-at-home order. I guess some people just don't get it. We're doing our budget planning right now, and it's pretty bleak. I don't know about the rest of the cities, but our department heads are now being tasked with having to look at employees and who's essential, who's not essential, and how we're going to save money. And as I said, our tax initiative, that's really helping us right now. So we're really happy that that tax initiative passed. And so we're going to continue looking and trying not to cut services within our city under 20%. We think that we can maybe do that with the creative finances and stuff and how we look at how we run our city. So right now we're hanging in there with everybody else. And I know that the mayors in the South Bay are doing a great job getting together, staying together, and working together. So that's my message. Thanks.
Thanks, Rodney. Cedric?
Thank you, Chris. You know, I've been hearing everyone's cities, and I think we're all in the same boat, and to the county for helping as we move forward with this process. You know, if history had, I guess, said this before we knew about today, when Carson was actually given a phony letter saying that we had COVID-19 all through the city, and we did our press conference saying it's not in our city. Hindsight is 2020. We have over 400 cases in our city, and we've had over 24 deaths to date. And it seems to be rising every single day. And my biggest concern is that we are not getting a handle in our city because I think people don't know how to stay at home. They still move about the community. They are not doing what they need to do. Our city hall, community center is still closed to the public. One of my concerns I would like to ask all of you, are you still allowing safe and sane fireworks to be sold for the 4th of July? Have any of you guys, are you going to still do it, or any of you are not going to have safe and sane be sold?
Most cities don't allow them.
Yeah, we don't allow it.
City of Inglewood does, and we plan to do it as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, City of Gardena, the city managers just told us that they're probably in negotiation now to let them do it.
To let them do it, okay. That's on our city council agenda for this coming Tuesday, whether or not to allow the safe and sane fireworks to be sold. My biggest concern is that you're allowing more people to go out and be amongst each other when you still have the number rising in our city. So that's what's going to be voted on this coming council meeting. Right. Little background, we do have a Carson hotline number that's out to the community. We've had over 3,000 calls to that center. We're doing food service for our most severely exposed, or we actually given out 15,000 meals free to our residents. We started the first, I think, COVID-19 testing site in the city on April the 24th. To date, we've tested about over 3,000 residents in the community. Don't know all the test results as of yet. And one thing that we did do this year that we haven't done in any other years, we put together a resource booklet, and it's in 3 different languages, English, Tagalog, and Spanish, and it went to every household in the city. When we did mandate that you had to have a mask in our city, the city purchased over 1,000 masks and gave them out to all the residents in the community. The one thing that's really hurting our city, as well as the numbers of positive test results, has been our small business. They are hurting to the point they may not be around, and we are more concerned about having a lot of vacant buildings in our community where businesses used to be at. So right now we're trying to work along with our legislators and trying to help in streamlining some of the process for applications. I did work with our Congresswoman Annette Barragan. She had an actual town hall meeting on a call-in today. And so we're just trying to work with all of our legislators to work to better support our small businesses, because I think that's what's being missed. And I know that we talk about hiring different individuals in our community, but if you're not out being able to, if you don't have a job, how are you going to buy anything? So that's what's the biggest issue right now. So if you're not working, so these are some of the things that we're doing in our community. And just at this point in time, everybody stay safe. I tell everyone, stay at home. If you don't have to go outside, stay home. It's the best way at this point in time. And I know cabin fever is live and well, and a lot of people just cannot stay at home. They just have to get out. But I do say one thing, our community is becoming healthier. I see a lot of people on bicycles I've never seen before. I've seen older people on skateboards, which I'm kind of afraid of, because then you have broken wrists and ankles and knees and everything else. But they're trying to find out a way to stay active and not be so much in the house. But with that being said, I just hope everyone have a blessed evening and that continue doing the work that you do, because a lot of times we're not always thanked for what we do, but I think the thank comes from the smiles that I receive from my residents who say, thank you at least for giving us information on what's going on in the community.
Thanks, Edward. B?
Hi, I'll give it brief. You know, we don't have commercial in our city, so we don't have some of the impacts that all of you do. And I pray that you get wisdom to deal with all the issues you're dealing with. And my heart goes out to all of you. We have only 2 people still that I believe have contracted COVID and no deaths. We did reopen our city hall on the 18th. And we're practicing social distancing with that. And residents were very supportive about when we were closed, because we did have made sure we took care of everybody's needs through emails, phone calls, and appointments only to get everything done. So they've been very respectful and supportive throughout. And I also want to do a shout out to our supervisor and health department for keeping us informed and for advocating for us. And I wish everybody well and blessings. And I have to go because I do have another engagement and phone call. But I want to thank you all for your time.
Thanks, B. Jim?
Thank you.
Unmute. I want to thank Supervisor Hahn and her staff. They've been fantastic. We've had 49 cases and 6 deaths, but we have numerous senior facilities, and we've been providing them with paper products, groceries, and meals all along. LA Unified's been feeding, I think, about 3,000 people a day at Narbonne High School. And we recently had a budget meeting. We've been putting money away for the last 10 years, so we have a pretty good reserve fund. So we're not going to lay off any employees. Everything will stay the same. We're offering $5,000 to our small businesses. It's they don't have to pay the loan back. We'll loan them the money, and we're streamlining the process to open it up and charging no fees. And so actually, you know, we're just ready to open up and get back to as, you know, as much normal life as we can. And I got to put a word in for Mayor Pro Tem Mark Warnick. He's out there, Lomita Kiwanis, they're feeding people every week, nice meals. He's buying meals from our local restaurants. They need, you know, they're helping them out and feeding a lot of people. And so, you know, I'm pretty happy the way our cities come together, and hopefully the rest of you won't have to make any, you know, tough budget decisions. I know, you know, not everyone's in the situation we're in, but that's all I have to say.
Great, thanks. So I'm last. So I'll just say, like most of you, we are, you know, in a bit of a financial crisis. We're looking at an 8.9 million hit. That's TOT's down 67%, or at least we're projecting it to be down 67% in the coming year. UUT's down. Property tax is holding steady, but as a result, we are going to we're going to lay off 2 people most likely. We are cutting clearly part-time jobs, like some of you have said. We're getting rid of vacant positions. We're just trying to trim the fat anywhere we can. And we're trying to do as much as we can without necessarily taking an enormous hit to the services that we provide to the community. So challenging place, just like all of you are in right now. Again, thanks to all the mayors along the beaches. You know, we are acting in unison. And so we have seen the beach opening. Clearly, RBPD in our area is along with the lifeguards having to enforce the beach rules. I don't know how well that's working. I hear mixed stories from residents, but we did secure masks, and so PD is giving out masks to people if they don't bring them to the beach. We're trying to be as proactive on that end. From a city standpoint, especially as it relates to business, I'm sure you guys get the same calls I do. You know, Eat at Joe's, I've been on the phone with them 2 days in a row. They're on the verge of having the shutter, you know, and so they are, you know, I was dealing with Jennifer and county today, you know, just trying to figure out, you know, what kind of assurances can we give these people. So, because they just don't know what they're going to do. It's torturing to have a conversation with a business and not be able to give them some kind of defined plan going forward. So, but I do appreciate at least you know, the statements and stuff that are coming from the supervisor's office and some of the recent restrictions and potential variance changes. Personally, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. We're being cautious and slow here. Personally, we're being uber conservative, but that's because my wife is a frontliner in a local ER. So, so we do our best to make sure that we're keeping ourselves away from other people, just on the off chance that she accidentally brings something home. Usually it comes home gift wrapped though, so it's a lovely COVID. It's red and comes with a bow. But with that said, we are in the same boat. And the one thing I will say that we have directed our staff to do is try to be as proactive as possible. So as the changes come and the loosening of restrictions come, that we can kind of get out of the way ministerially as a city. You know, so we're setting up situations where we can create temporary use permits so restaurants can open up possibly in their private parking lots. We're looking at the potential of possibly closing down some of the street in Riviera Village so that restaurants or vendors can get out into the streets to create more socially distanced ways to carry on. Clearly that can't happen throughout the city. So anything we can do that, you know, to get out of the way and allow them to be innovative in their ability to reopen, that's what we're trying to do for when those orders do change and come down. With that said, Jackie, go ahead.
I know that Wally can't speak, and I just wanted to mention that I've been on the phone with your city managers and community development directors and economic development directors, and everybody's talking about using plexiglass all over City Hall. And I just wanted to mention that if Wally could speak, he would be saying that he has read articles about face shields being 90% effective and probably a lot cheaper for your cities with a face shield with a mask than putting plexiglass up everywhere that is sometimes hard to find. So I just want to throw that out as a suggestion that face shields provide some good protection along with a face mask. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will just say, in talking with my city manager earlier today, we're going to slow roll the full reopening of City Hall, because it could be problematic if an employee was to come down and contract COVID-19 from carrying that forward as a city health responsibility. So we're going to slow roll that for now and try to do as much as we can in a virtual world like we have been doing in terms of services, counter services and stuff like that. If there are no other comments, we have reached the end of the meeting. I apologize that we did go late, but I appreciate hearing everybody's stories and updates on this. With that said, we will adjourn to June. And I appreciate all you guys coming. Thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion to give Jennifer a raise. Complete love fest.
I think we would all do it if we could. So everybody call Janice and
just text Janice right now.
Thank you
All
all.
right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good seeing you.
Take care.
All right. Be safe.
Be safe. Be kind.
Be safe. See you guys.